Today, I'm going to try to stump Mike with some rapid fire terms you probably heard of, but maybe don't always know what they mean.
At M2 Technology, we're on a mission to make IT accessible to everyone. Join us on our journey to demystify the ever-evolving world of business technology. Are you ready to get unplugged?
Welcome back to IT Unplugged. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to do something a little bit different. So IT has a lot of acronyms and a lot of jargon. We just call it, IT jargon. We actually make fun of it a lot in our marketing stuff, is that, you ask an IT person a question and you're just going to get a bunch of alphabet soup that doesn't make any sense. So you just stop asking questions, essentially. But today we're going to do something a little different. This is going to be some rapid fire rounds where I'm going to ask you to give me a non-technical explanation, okay? So non-technical explanation, as hard as that might be, of these words. And it's going to be rapid fire. We're just going to go, okay? All right. So I know you haven't seen these beforehand.
Can I request we start with IT? And
yes.
I'm asking you that one, actually.
Yeah. You're asking me?
I don't know what IT
means. That's the people that plug something in and then plug it out, and they get paid a decent amount of money, I think, for that. Is that correct? Or
fairly accurate. Yeah, we're really good at unplugging.
Really good at unplugging.
And then ideally plugging back in.
Yes. Or you might get assistance from someone else to plug back in, if you're remote or whatever that looks like. All right, perfect. We're off to a good start. So that's why I'm not answering these questions. So, Mike, are you ready for our rapid fire round?
Yeah.
Okay.
As ready as I'm going to be.
Okay, here we go. First one, brute force attack.
All right, so if somebody's trying to break into your house and they don't have the key and they just have a big mallet and they're just smashing at your front door, and then eventually they break in, or eventually they just give up, right? They're like, you know what, I'm out of breath.
Okay, so that's a brute force attack?
Yeah, so what that would be in a business environment is somebody's smashing their way into your router, or they're smashing their way into your computer.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, MFA, or multi-factor authentication.
That would be like you're logging into Google, and then it says like, hey, open up the Gmail app on your phone and tap 73, and you're like, all right, and you do that. Also commonly referred to as 2FA, or two-factor authentication. Very similar, multi-factor and two-factor.
Okay. Redundancy.
Redundancy you most often see in like maybe servers. So you'd have two power supplies. They're both multiple ways of doing that, but let's say power supply specifically, most frequently would be they're both either running at like a low level, and then one ramps up when the other was to go offline, or maybe one is always running and the other is not, and it's sitting on standby. So redundancy in not technical world would be like, let's say you have a vacuum cleaner and then you also have another vacuum cleaner, because you're like, what if this vacuum cleaner dies? Like, I need to vacuum things. I can't have a dirty floor. And you always want to be ready to vacuum the mess.
Okay, perfect. That's all right. So now I have an excuse to get a second vacuum cleaner for like Mother's Day or something like that, and I'll just be like, redundancy.
Gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, okay, exactly. All right, software as a service.
That it kind of is what it is. It's a piece of software that the service that you're providing is selling that software, or the service you're providing is what the software performs. So let's say it's an antivirus, and your entire company's business model is based off of selling that piece of software.
Okay.
Maybe on a very large scale, because quite frequently a software as a service would be on a large scale. You're not wanting to pick up somebody that purchases one license or one instance, or maybe you have a website that has you log into Nike and it says, hey, can we help you with anything today? And it's in the lower right corner, and you're like, no, leave me alone. Well, maybe you used to sling that piece of software as a service.
Okay. All right. How about Trojan horse?
Something that is not as it appears to be.
Okay.
So way back historically, not even going to try to get into like dates and years or anything.
Yeah. What's the exact year, Mike?
Ask Google or your smart home device. which will remain nameless, a bunch of soldiers hiding in a fake Trojan horse that was a gift, and you're inside of a wall, and then all the soldiers sneak out and they kill everybody, right? So same thing would be, let's say you have a picture and an email, and you're like, I really want to see this picture, but it's not a picture. It's actually, it's junk, it's spam, it's a virus.
Okay, that's the Trojan horse attack. I got you. All right, VM.
VM in the sense of
A
computing
virtual-
is virtual machine, but where you'd most frequently see it in business in 2024 is a virtual server, the virtual machine that is a server. Typically, there's a host, so you'll see the server, the physical big computer thing that lives down the hallway that has loud fans and redundant power supplies in the back. But on the physical machine, there are multiple, typically virtual machines. So maybe there's a server that manages your files, and then there's a server that manages your logins and security. So those would be virtual machines, VMs living on one physical machine.
Why do you need those?
In some situations, you have applications that need to run on their own server, or they require to be ran, or they would function best on their own server.
Okay.
So rather than having two complete, physical boxes, most oftentimes it makes the most sense, and it's kind of like the 2024 way, or the common industry standard way of doing that would be virtually.
Okay, gotcha. Firewall.
Also referred to as a router, right? Not to say that all routers have the same ability as each other. Not all routers are created equal. That is just a moot point. But the firewall is what would be the first line of defense from the outside world to your internal network, the WAN to the LAN, wide area network to the local area network.
Oh, that's getting too technical. That's getting too technical, Mike. I think you missed an opportunity to say it's like a giant wall of fire that protects your company or something like that, right? No.
That's way cooler. Moving on, because I'm kind of mad that I didn't think of that.
Okay, sounds good. What about phishing?
When you're on Lake Lily and Lily Lake and you're trying to get some perch. No, but very similar. The threat actor is casting out a line. Maybe it's via email. Probably
Sure.
most typical would be via email, saying, "Hey, I want you to buy some gift cards for me. I'm tied up in a meeting right now. Why don't you get those gift cards and then just shoot me over the numbers? All right?" And you wouldn't fall for that, obviously. Would never fall for that. But let's say you did, right? And you just fell for phishing. They were feeling out, hey, is this person going to bite on this?
Okay, I gotcha. All right. How about malware?
Malware, very similar to like Trojan horse-esque, right? It's junk.
Okay.
Typically that is tagged on to something else. Or maybe that something else is tagged onto is a website. You're visiting a website, and upon clicking onto a page or upon doing something, there's a cookie or there's an ad or there's something that is malware that now is attached to you or your computer.
Yeah, and it's a bad thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
All right. Encryption.
In our sphere, we see encryption most frequently on the day-to-day with email encryption. So if you're a medical practice, you're sending protected information like patient chart or X-rays or maybe you have a document that's a disclosure that has someone's social security number on it or something like that, like protected information, and you need to send it elsewhere, not via you're handing it off to someone.
Yep.
So you'd email it, because we don't use the fax machine anymore because come on. So you're emailing it. And the proper way of doing that to be PCI and HIPAA compliant is with encrypted mail. A whole slew of vendors to provide that service, but encrypted mail would be where you'd see encryption most. You can refer to encryption in different methods, like maybe you're encrypting some data to keep it secure, or you have a backup of a computer or a network or something that is stored encrypted, but what would probably be most common is encrypted mail.
Okay. So is it like a secret, like when it becomes encrypted, is it like a secret message or like what, you know what I mean? Like, is it just a bunch of different random characters? Would I be able to recognize that data if I intercepted it?
Right. So mail as it's flowing, if you can picture a piece of mail just flying by us here in internet land. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, there we go.
If it's not encrypted, essentially, just the base standard essentially is plain text, right?
Okay.
So let's say you are watching mail flow around through the internet here, and you're like, oh, Bill just emailed Craig. Oh, it says, hey, Bill. Oh, it's gone. Okay, all right. But if it's encrypted, you're like, gobbledygook to more gobbledygook. Like I
Sure, got
I
it.
don't know what that is.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
correct.
So next one is VPN.
Virtual private network, most commonly seen in business use for connecting offsite to onsite. So a VPN for business, you can use it to mimic or kind of like trick your computer into thinking that you're sitting on site.
Oh, okay.
Hey, you're working at home, you connect to your VPN, right? And then
Yeah.
you can see your server, you can see your files, and you can see stuff. That's how you would use it for business, to make your computer think that it is in the office.
Okay.
Right?
So
How you could
tricking
use
it.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit of tricking. How you would use that for personal side. Maybe you really like The Office, and you're still very upset that Netflix in the U.S. no longer shows you The Office.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you spin up a VPN, and you say that you're in Canada, and the next thing you know, now Netflix is like, hey, do you want to watch The Office? And you're like,
Oh, okay.
you're like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's nothing any of us would ever do, though.
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Moving on. Real simple explanation for cloud computing, if you can.
Yeah.
The real simple cloud computing.
let's say you play a lot of video games,
Okay.
and you're in the airport,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to play an Xbox game, and you're like, man, I don't have my Xbox with me, and then if I did, I'd have like a TV, and then I've got to find an outlet, and then like I'm sitting on the floor at the air, like, yeah, it's too much. So you could have a device like one of the smaller streaming gaming devices that can connect you to a cloud gaming computer, a virtualized computer, a VM that's very powerful, like your Xbox or your gaming computer would be, that lives in the cloud, that you then just have access to on your little handheld. So it's not doing the computing power.
Yeah.
It's relying on the power of what it's set aside for in the cloud.
Oh man. Okay.
So
that's-
you on your
Yeah.
phone, or you on a
Yeah.
small device can use the power of a much larger machine.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Nice. Next one. Internet of Things, or IoT.
IoT at home, light switches, Philips Hue, Sonos, smart speakers, lights, cameras, that type of thing, door locks. All of that is referred to as IoT. They're IoT devices.
Okay.
Right. On surface level.
Yeah.
In business, there's a use case for IoT. Maybe you have like a whole office audio, or smart light switches. You see probably audio and light switches are probably most common for businesses, because typically you'd have like a different style setup where security things are on its own network entirely, but IoT devices for business, probably like smart lights and audio.
Okay. Cool. Next one. Social engineering.
You call someone's help desk and you say, hey, I'm Mike. I forgot my password today. Like, it was, craziest thing. Long night, totally forgot. Oh, yeah, no problem. Hey, how's your weekend, Mike? You're like, oh, doing good. Yep, I just reset that for you. It's, password 123. Oh, perfect. Sounds good. Well, you're not Mike, you're Brandon.
Yeah.
And then now you just got, you got password, right? So that's one form of social engineering. Maybe another would be, rather than calling a help desk, maybe you try to impersonate, and that's like kind of more spoofing than anything, but maybe you're trying to impersonate someone else via email, and you could say that that's social engineering because you're trying to make somebody think that, right? But the form of deploying that would be spoofing, but you're social engineering it.
A lot of trickery. A lot of trickery here.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. What about patch?
Like if you're a pirate and you get poked in the eye, and no, I'm just kidding. Updates. Okay. So frequently computers, servers, firewalls, your virtual machines, they receive patching. They receive updates. There's more to monthly maintenance than just receiving patches or scanning for patches, applying patches, but another phrasing of the word update, or another phrasing of like a firmware update.
Gotcha. Okay. What about penetration testing?
Okay, so you have an awesome firewall in place, and all of your virtual machines, just a wall of fire surrounding your business, and it's not creeping in. It's good. It's just there. But you want to test and see, hey, can Evel Knievel jump over the wall of fire into my front door? I would pay to watch that, first of all. But that's what penetration testing is. So it's like, hey, let's run some tests and see, where we're vulnerable. Or let's run some tests and see if this thing and this firewall and, Craig are doing their job and it's going to stop, or to what extent is it not? Yeah. So then you know in a test environment, rather than that's just now your vulnerability. Sure. So then you can know, okay, hey, this was our weak point. What can we do about that? Okay, is this like a settings change? Is there a patch? Is there a firewall update that's going to solve this? Or is, for some reason, is like the weak point the users? Hey, we're doing great on all of this, but the weak point is when we send out test spoofing emails, or when we send out like a test email with a Trojan attached to it, and every single time, employee X clicks on this, there's the weak point. Let's do something about that.
In all honesty, it's usually the humans that are the weak point, but it's also good to see the other areas of the weak point. Probably best visual explanation I've seen now. Firewall with Evel Knievel jumping over. So, how about endpoint security?
Another phrasing of antivirus or endpoint protection, or like an anti-malware service. Sure. It's a software security offering specifically for endpoints, so specifically for a computer or your workstation, your laptop. Yeah. Again, many different vendors that operate in that sphere, and some are better than others.
Yeah, absolutely. We should just start with endpoint, right? Like, what's an endpoint? Because sometimes we say that all the time, and it's like, oh, that's your computer or your phone or your server. So that
or end user.
Yeah.
Hey, you're the user of this endpoint. Okay, well, you're the end user.
What about backup?
Backup in the most simplest is just a duplicate of a set of data, or a backup, a duplicate of something. Yeah. Well, that moves into disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is more so an entire plan to, you need to fall back on your backup. That's great. You have a backup, but like, does it work? Yeah. Okay, so that's part of disaster recovery. Probably step one is, besides having a disaster recovery plan, is, do you have a backup, right? So yes, okay, perfect. Does it work? Well, I don't know. Do we test it? Like, hopefully you have something that verifies that, right? Yep. So then in that case, yes, it does work. Perfect. Here's, step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 through 70 or whatever, however many steps that your disaster recovery plan has to get you back online and operational. Perfect. Network topology. Essentially a roadmap saying, hey, this is your router, this is your firewall. Downstream from this, so further down, down in your network is, maybe you have from your firewall is a switch, and then that's where all your computers plug into. Great. From there, maybe you have a server and a bunch of workstations, a bunch of endpoints. Those endpoints get their IP addresses from the server. Maybe they get their routing information from the router or the firewall. That whole mapped out topography is what we're talking about. Okay, so it's like a giant map of everything that's kind of out there. Okay. Yep. What about IP address? I hear that a lot. Internet protocol is IP. That's kind of, you can look at it as two different segments here. One is your WAN IP, like we talked about before. That's your outside address, right? Like the address in your house. It's permanent for the most part, but it's permanent, saying, hey, if you would like to go pull up, youtube.com, there's an IP address or multiple IP addresses associated with that, and they are the same. Great. Internal, or a LAN, would be like 192.168.1.5. That's your printer at home. Cool. There's a set number of IP addresses internally that can be handed out by your router or by whatever. And every device that's on your network, Wi-Fi or wired or have an IP. Yeah, every single one has an IP. Yep. How many IP addresses can a router have? 255. Oh, there's an answer. I wasn't expecting an answer. I'm sorry. All right. I think that in one. I mean, if you're getting in one subnet 255, then you can spin up another subnet. You can have VLANs. It was going to be like a lot or something like that. That's why I'm not answering the question. So I was like, many. Yes, many. All right. Awesome. Well, I feel like rapid fire. I love breaking it down, because sometimes IT can be so hard to approach, especially for non-technical people. Yeah.
And yeah, it's always awesome to make things a little bit easier to understand. So thank you so much for tuning into IT Unplugged. Make sure you subscribe, like the channels, all that other fun stuff. And we are here for your IT needs. So if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out.